Someone tells you that you need to sleep for 8 hours a day, another person tells you that you have to wake up at 5 a.m. to be productive in your life, another person tells you that you need to sleep during the day, then wake up at night, and another person tells you that you should go to university, somebody else tells you that you should drop out of university. How do you actually take advice from people? That's what we're going to talk about today. This is an interesting topic for me as someone who is often asked for advice. Like, people ask me for advice on how should I do this, should I do that, what should I do? And also someone who seeks a lot of advice from other people. I always think about, how do I actually take advice? Because I can't do everything that everybody says possibly. It doesn't make any sense. It's not possible. So the first thing to think about when taking advice from other people, and I know that this is highly ironic because I am literally giving advice about how to take advice, but let's leave that. But the first thing to think about when you want to take advice from other people is that everyone gives advice from their perspective. Usually it's about what they would do and what they would not do. And they're usually not thinking about it in the context of what you want or what your life is. And so you have to always be sure about where is the source of their advice coming from. Are they saying what they would do, what they wouldn't do? I talked about this in an episode before about how everything is relative, right? So if you're a very cautious person, anyone who does something that you perceive to not be cautious, you will consider to be careless. But then anyone who is more cautious than you are, you will consider to be paranoid. So relative to you is how you're making a judgment about people's level of cautiousness or carelessness. So usually when someone is giving you advice, they will usually give you from the point of view of their own experiences, their own fears, and the things that they are incentivized towards, or the game that they're playing. So everyone is playing a different game in life, or they may play similar games. But before you take advice from someone, you need to know whether you and them have the same end goal in mind, basically. So for example, your parents might tell you that you must go to university and study medicine instead of pursuing some other passion because they know, quote unquote, from their own experience, maybe not personally, but from observed experiences from other people, that medicine is a way for a stable life and a stable career. And their incentive is that they want you to have a stable life and a stable career, and they believe that this is the best way for you to do it. Now, some other people will tell you that you don't need to go to university. You can, Mark Zuckerberg dropped out and blah, blah, blah. They'll give you those examples. But then they do not realize that Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates and all these other people, they are playing in a different reality, or they were playing in a different reality and playing a different game than you are, most likely. Another important thing to think about is what is valuable to you, because that also goes back to like the game that you're playing. So if what is valuable to you might be different from what is valuable to someone else. So someone may value wealth over their integrity, or money over something else. And if for you, your integrity is more important to you than making a few extra bucks, then maybe you don't want to follow the advice of somebody who's telling you to steal money, for example. That's like a very clear-cut example, but in some cases, it may be a bit more vague for you to like see where the line is. So really think about what is your value, what are the defining values for your life, right? And compare that to what the advice someone is giving you is. Does it relate to that? And while typically the rule of thumb of only taking advice from someone who is where you want to be is true, or someone whose life reflects the thing that you want is usually true, sometimes is not, because imagine somebody who made like a lot of money from when, like, crypto, for example, and they became super wealthy because they got lucky and they picked the right crypto, and they even had money in the first place to put into it to get that outsized return, and they were lucky enough to get out before it crashed. Imagine that person giving you financial advice about how to grow your wealth. You may want to be careful about that, because their reality and their experience is not universally applicable. They got lucky, and they may not even realize that they got lucky, and then they may want to stand on their high horse and feel like, now I can teach you about how to make money because I got lucky and well, they don't think they got lucky. In their heads, they worked really hard and were able to get such outsized returns from crypto. But the point is, though they may look like where you want to be, you have to then look behind, like, how did they actually get to that point? And is that the kind of path that you want to follow? Another example of where it might be helpful to take advice from someone, even if they may not be living the reality for quote unquote, is so with like applying to grad school. There are a couple of people who I've worked with, like giving them like advice on the applications and everything, for applying to grad school, and they did get into grad school. But I am not in grad school. I applied to grad school a couple of times. I didn't get in. I got into one school and then I dropped out. Based on the face of, don't listen to people who are not in the exact position that you would like to be or haven't gone through that process. People shouldn't listen to me about applying to grad school. But the people who have listened to me, who have like coached one on one and helped with like applying to grad school, did get into grad school. So it's not necessarily like one to one. It's really about filtering through what they're saying to you if it makes sense for your particular context, and then decide whether you want to go with it or not. It's hard to know how to actually, I'm sure you were listening to this expecting a step by step, step one, step two. But this kind of thing, there's no actual step by step process. The thing is, you need to know what is important to you when you're filtering advice from other people. Like for me, I've decided that all the advice of you have to wake up at 5 a.m. so you can be productive in life, like it does not apply to me. I've tried it didn't work. I like my full 6 to 8 hours of sleep. I need my full 6 to 8 hours of sleep to be productive during the day. And the life that I have does not allow for me to wake up at 5 a.m. Like I've tried it, it's not a behavior that I can do consistently for a long period of time. And I have tried that, and when I tried it, I was actually unproductive because I was cranky, I was upset, I was tired the whole day. So for me, that doesn't work. And when it's things that you can easily change, maybe you can try out the advice. And when it's things that you can't easily change, maybe you want to be more careful and think about what is the context of your life. Do they have similar values to you, or are your values different? Do they have a bias in that situation? So the example I gave about like your parents saying, don't drop out of school because if you drop out of school, you'll be poor, right? I mean, most people who drop out of school, the people who become successful without like higher education, I don't have the actual numbers, but I would say that more people are, and again, depend, like, what do you define as success, right? Again, that goes back to, is it success for you having millions of dollars in the bank, or is success for you doing the thing that gives you the most joy? And so if somebody who views success as making millions of dollars gives you advice to stay in school or to not stay in school, you want to assess, are you like looking at, are you playing the same game basically? Is the advice based on playing the same game, based on having the same values, based on having the same point of view about what is important? Is it relevant to your situation? And do they have any biases for or against that topic? Because you don't want to follow the advice of someone who is biased against something. For me, my advice for everybody is like, go to school, finish university at the very least, because I think education is so important. But maybe it doesn't apply to you, maybe in your situation, because I do know people who dropped out of uni and are doing really well for themselves, and not just like financially or whatever, but in terms of like alignments with their personal values and their own definitions of success. And most importantly, don't take advice from only one person. Like, don't always take advice from one person, because there's no one person whose life and whose values and whose things align with you 100% in every facet of life. It's not possible. So there are things where you definitely disagree on. So be careful about like turning somebody into quote unquote your God, where everything they say is the right thing to do, is what you do. Be, for lack of a better word, critical about when you receive advice, especially from people that you tend to want to follow what they say, so that you're sure that you're not just mindlessly following them. Another thing you want to avoid is advice where the person is always giving the same advice, regardless of the context of the person that they're trying to advise. So, as much as like my default is to say that please stay in school, I dropped out of uni. Granted, it was grad school, right? So I don't think that you should always stay in school no matter what the situation in life is. There are instances where it might make more sense for you to drop out of school. My sister also dropped out of school, and I solidly supported that decision that she made. She had gone like 4 years into uni. Oh my God, she's going to be my next guest episode, and we're going to talk about dropping out of school. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, so like if somebody is always giving the same blanket advice for every single situation in life, then you probably want to avoid that person because again, life is contextual. People have different contexts, different things that are important to them at different points in their lives. So the same thing can be right all the time. I think the only life advice that is always 100% accurate is give your life to Christ. But yeah, I think check that you're operating from the same value base and from the same understanding of your situation, and check that they're not just always giving the same blanket advice, and check that they are not giving you advice based on their own biases alone, because that's what most people tend to do. They just give you advice based on their own biases and what they would do. Well, I hope you were able to get something out of this. Thanks for listening. Bye. A quick reminder that I am accepting questions for the podcast. If you have any questions that you'd like me to cover, any things that you'd like me to talk about, please fill the form. I'm going to put the question form in the show notes. So yeah, bye. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of A Couple of Things. If you enjoyed this episode or found any part of it insightful, don't forget to share with your friends on your social media, and be sure to leave a comment or a review if you can on your podcast listening app. Thank you.